Thank you so much for tuning into the Journey of Giving Back. Each episode we feature amazing people, people making the world better, and we go on emotional journeys. Today I have a great privilege and honor of meeting Earl Granville, a decorated war hero. We're going to learn about his military service. We're going to learn about, unfortunately, having a horrible thing happen to him in Afghanistan while deployed in 2008, losing a leg, severely injuring his right foot, and really lost two beloved servicemen with him. We're going to go on a journey on how he overcame that. We're going to learn also about the sad passing of his brother Joe to suicide in 2010. And we're going to really grow together when we listen to his story. It's so powerful. And we're going to also learn about Cindy. Good morning. How are we doing?
Very good.
So nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You know, thank you. I know that you came great distance to be here today. Mm-hmm. I want to go back in time, if I may. Where are you from originally?
Well, where I'm from, home, where I was born and raised, Carbondale, Pennsylvania, right outside of Scranton. And so I always tell people, I'm from Scranton, just because nobody knows Carbondale. But if you're fans of The Office, that's where I'm from.
Interesting. One of the things, the reason why I wanted to meet you also is you served in the military, our great country. And I understood in getting ready for the show that you actually deployed. You enlisted right before 9/11. Mm-hmm. What made you decide to join our great military?
Well, the reason I joined the military, to be very honest and very blunt, I saw the free education. I think growing up, in my teenage years, I was going to little punk shows, stuff like that, and I felt like music was my culture. And the idea of joining the military never really resonated with me, but my brother, Joe, was talking about it. And the reason why I really decided to sign that contract, hey, free education, I have no scholarships coming up. So, hey, this might be something good. Do my minimal contract locally in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard and call it a day. However, we graduated high school. We had a nice summer, and we landed in Fort Benning, Georgia for basic training. And the date we landed there in Georgia was September 1st, 2001.
Wow, crazy how that all worked out.
Let me tell you something. I looked at Joe. I was like, what did you get me into, my man? This isn't I didn't join the military to go to war, right? Because I was making it about me at the time. You could call it a selfish reason, call it whatever you want. But, I learned real quick, well, I got to grow up now.
Well, so a lot of people that join the military have family in military. Mm-hmm. Do you have any background in your family?
Yeah, my dad joined the Army as well. And my father told me he joined the military. His reason was join the Army or go to jail. And he never told me what he did. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And my older brother, Al, he was 27 years in the Coast Guard. Yeah. Never went overseas. However, he was stationed in Staten Island during 9/11. So he was spent a lot of time in the harbor that day with the chaos in front of him and, kind of seeing what he could do on his end. And that's like from my father and my oldest brother, that was a big, two of them were in the military as well.
So I know you shared with us that you joined for the free education, but obviously there's a bit of a background. And thank your dad and obviously your brother for the service to our great country. Mm-hmm. So you were deployed. Did you deploy with your brother initially?
Yes. Joe and I, as soon as we graduated basic training, we came home back to Pennsylvania. And being we're National Guard, at the time, it was 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. We shortly after graduating, we got orders for Bosnia. And the ignorant 18-year-old I was at the time, what are we doing in Bosnia, right? Eastern Europe. What just happened over in, what happened in 9/11? I thought we'd be going to Afghanistan. So I learned a little bit about Bosnia. Somebody recommended I read a book called Love Thy Neighbor. And the author is Peter Maas. And you can still find it on Amazon. And reading that book, I understood why we had NATO forces over in Bosnia at the time. And a little history lesson. 92 to 95, these horrible genocides happening in this part of Eastern Europe. And 1995, NATO forces finally stepped in. Look, They can't get this under control. Let's get in there. And it was a peacekeeping mission. Time my unit got there, the 109th Infantry in 2002, the fighting was stopped. Like I said, it was a peacekeeping mission. And there wasn't a real threat to soldiers and other NATO forces over there. The biggest threat I feel like we all had at the time was, don't drive off the road, you'll hit a landmine. Just because of all those horrible things that were happening in the early 90s and just all these slaughters that were happening. It was pretty heavy. But that book, Love Thy Neighbor by Peter Moss, made me understand why we had troops over there. And if you're not into reading, Angelina Jolie, I believe she produced the movie, but the movie was called In the Land of Blood and Honey. It's not even in English. It's, you can read subtitles, so that's what got me through the movie, but it's a little more of an understanding. It's very graphic, but I'm just trying to understand why we had these troops over there, and reading that book was a big understanding why.
So, Earl, you get deployed to Bosnia, you're with your brother, and you had a few other deployments. So you're in Bosnia, you come back to Pennsylvania.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, we got back to Pennsylvania spring of 2003. I enroll into college, Lackawanna College in downtown Scranton. Started getting that education, the whole reason why I was in the military to begin with. And 2 semesters in, we got orders for Iraq, but it was a volunteer mission. And I was like, boy, I'm not going to go. Joe, on the other hand, right away, he went the other direction. And him and a few other of my buddies that I was in Bosnia with, and I'm like, God forbid something happens and I'm back home partying at college where they're all fighting a war. You know what? I think the time we get back from this deployment, I'll have less than a year in my contract. So just suck it up, dude, and go over. I got to tell you something, Todd. Going on that deployment with the 109th Infantry, becoming a sergeant. I'm a little older now, like I'm 21. My 22nd birthday was over in Iraq. I saw the big picture of wearing that uniform. This isn't about me. It's about us. Being a part of something bigger than ourselves. And for a National Guard unit, my battalion, the 109th Infantry, we got split in half. I was in Alpha Company with my brother and some of my friends, and we were in a place called Al-Assad, Iraq, in the Al-Anbar province. Big Iraqi air base that U.S. troops took over. And my friends in Bravo Company, they were in a different place you may have heard of called Ramadi. This is now 0506. Let me just say, these were 2 different deployments. August of 2005, while on patrol, this foot patrol takes sniper fire. And hit that day was one of our soldiers in the 109th, Staff Sergeant Ryan Ostrom, by sniper fire, killed in action. September 19, 2005, while on patrol in Bradley fighting vehicles, one of those vehicles has a roadside bomb. Driving the vehicle that day, Specialist Billy Evans of Montrose, Pennsylvania, killed in action. And then September 28th, 2005, while on patrol in Bradley fighting vehicles, one of those Bradleys hits a roadside bomb. This IED is full of white phosphorus. All 5 killed in action. Staff Sergeant Daniel Arnold of Susquehanna County, Staff Sergeant George Puglisi of Carbondale, Pennsylvania, Sergeant Eric Slobodnik of Greenfield Township, Specialist Lee Wiegand of Susquehanna County, and PFC Oliver Brown of Bradford County. Now remember, we're National Guard. We're supposed to be 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. Even in basic training, we got the National Guard and Army Reserve soldiers, we got teased because we weren't going to see any action. But this is obviously the real deal. When I came home on my 2-week leave, which every person does when you're on a year deployment, I went back to Pennsylvania. It was November of 2005, so a few weeks after these horrible situations happened. Flags are half-mast. You see on businesses, God bless the 109th Infantry. And I'm realizing this isn't just a huge toll on the 109th. this is a huge toll on northeastern Pennsylvania. Like I said, we're a guard unit. This doesn't happen. When I came back to Iraq after my 2-week leave, shortly after I had that less than a year left on my contract, and now it's to make the decision. Do I re-up my contract or do I get out? Well, Joe and I had a discussion. We both decided to re-up in country. And we came home from this deployment.
I have a question about
Sure.
this, Earl. Because, I mean, I feel so horrible about the loss. These are your comrades in arms. I mean, these are heroes. They put it all on the line. When you initially had signed up with the Pennsylvania National Guard, the 109th, I mean, did you even appreciate just how dangerous the missions could be? Or was it more just like, I'm going to go overseas, I'm going to kind of have a new experience? Or did you appreciate the gravity of what you were undertaking?
Everybody's combat experience is different. You know, you don't know what you're getting into. And I feel like you can't really focus so much on that. It's just making sure you're making those right decisions over there with your comrades, your friends to the left and the right of you, and trying to all get home in one piece.
So one of the things too is, because we're all obviously human and we have our fears, our emotions. When you're deployed and you were telling us in very graphic terms the horrible loss of life to some people that was always going to be in your heart and soul, were you nervous or scared when you went on your tour with your brethren there in arms?
I think there's definitely a little bit of nervousness, but I can't let it control me. There's no way, because you have to be up to par with the people around you. And I think that's what's important. You know the danger of the situation. You're obviously in a combat zone. We're outside the wire. Something may or may not happen. But if it does happen, you just got to be on your toes.
All right. And so you come back home after obviously quite a tour in Iraq. Mm-hmm. Your fallen brethren, your home. Did you say, look, I had enough? I mean, I served my great country. I saw people I loved and cared so much. They lost their lives. Mm-hmm. Were you ready to say, okay, I did my duty. I'm going to get my education, and I've done what I wanted to do?
I felt like I wanted to make a career out of this. And
did?
Yeah, I mean, after that Iraq deployment, it changed my mindset of wearing that uniform. And this is a job I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I felt like this is it. I found what I wanted in life.
And your brother, your beloved brother Joe, I mean, what's his thoughts when you guys came back?
I feel like Joe was gung-ho right from the beginning of us joining. And you could see it in Joe. Like, Joe was very, very, very good at his job. And not saying I was bad, but I was just even keel, average soldier. I could say that with myself with respect. But Joe was always above that food chain.
This is your twin brother,
This is my twin, yes.
Yeah, so I know twins, and they say every twin is a little different, even though they may look the same. And I know how much you loved your late brother. So did there come a time that you had to make a decision if you're going to re-up again? Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about that?
Well, when I re-upped my contract, I re-upped for 3 years, and Joe re-upped for 6 years. And when we came home from Iraq and I enrolled back into Lackawanna College, I got my associate's degree. I hit this fork in the road. What's next? Do I get a higher education at a university and get that undergrad? Do I start looking for work? Well, then all of a sudden we got orders to go on a deployment with a unit called the 103rd Armor being attached to them. But it was another volunteer mission for those who were in Iraq. Like, hey, we just got back a year and change ago. You don't have to go on this tour if you want to, but the option is to volunteer. And I raised my hand. I'm like, yeah, I'll go. Joe, on the other hand, he's going to stay back. He's now married, and his focus is starting a family. And Joe says to me, look, dude, I'm not going, but I don't think you should go either. How about we both go over again when we have no choice to go over? And I said to Joe, nah, I'll be all right. I'll be good. So off I went to Afghanistan with this unit called the 103rd Armor, also part of the Pennsylvania Army National Guard.
Now, when you re-upped again and went deployed to Afghanistan, any of your comrades in arms join you back in this 109th unit?
Yeah, a few of my buddies. My buddy Present, he was there. My buddy Alekna, a bunch of my friends were over as well. So I wasn't the only one.
So before you redeploy to Afghanistan, one of the things that we're all trying to understand, because I love the military so much, is when you get deployed, you have a certain mindset, obviously, and then you have to come back to the States. After the second deployment, but before you re-up to go to Afghanistan, which was volunteer on your part, was it hard to adjust to like civilian life at that point, or were you had your feet on the ground?
I think there was a little bit of adjustment. Now, there's always talks about what's better, active duty military or National Guard Reserve. I felt like being a Guard member, it was like the best of both worlds at this time in history because of how often we're deploying. It's like I'm in college, I'm going to go off to some foreign land, make some money because I'm not spending any money over there. Have these amazing experiences. I'm like, everything goes right. I'm going to come home from this deployment and I have my goals ahead of me when I come home. And I think that's a biggest issue when it comes, this is just my opinion. I think, Todd, when it comes to active duty, it's when, I feel anyway, I don't know the stats on this, but when you graduate high school and you go right into this completely different culture, the armed forces, right? And this is your whole adult life. Your minimal contract is 4 years, or you go for 24 years, whatever, When you take that uniform off, your whole adult life is combat boots and a rifle, and that's all you know as an adult, right? I feel there is a huge adjustment there. But for myself, being a Guard member, if I didn't get hurt, I'd probably just keep going. Like I loved what I did. But those little, I guess you could call I don't want to call them breaks, but when I wasn't deployed, when I was back stateside, I had those missions in front of me of what I had to do and get done. And I think that would help me with that adjustment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, all right. So you get redeployed to Afghanistan.
Yes.
And did you have the same feelings? Did you have, the same, basically your core beliefs, and you got your team around you and everything's going to be safe? Or were you still on edge because of just the war environment?
Well, I think it's important to be at ease and not let your emotions get the best of you in those situations over there. Because being an even keel, I think, is important because of the situation around you. I can't be losing myself when other people are relying on me, just like I'm relying on them. Does that make sense?
Right.
So it's something that you have to keep in mind when you're in these situations over there. But sometimes there is some nervousness.
Okay. So I want to talk to you, Sergeant, about that fateful day.
Sure.
All right. Which I know that is obviously a horrible day in your life. Mm-hmm. What happened that day in Afghanistan in 2008?
June of 2008, we were scheduled to go to a little town called Zormont to escort one of our civil affairs officers to look at a future site with local Afghan government to build a school for the village, like a few weeks down the road. So it was a 4-day mission. We had other things going on as well, but this specific point in time in these 4 days, I was escorting the civil affairs officer. His name is Major Scott Haggerty. And every person we escort liked to sit in the back seat of the vehicle, except for Major Haggerty.
And he's from Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Army Reserve. He's been in for a very long time, and he's way up the food chain. So Major Haggerty's like, I'm going to be in charge today, sit in that shotgun seat like he always did. I'm like, Major Haggerty, you want to be in that shotgun seat barking orders on the radio? Go right ahead. I'm going to jump on the gunner's hatch. And that's what we did. And the location we were going at, to get here, It was a new area that we were headed to that we haven't been to yet. And also, partially through this deployment, we got vehicles that are called MRAPs. They're big, wider vehicles with 6 wheels, 3 on each side. So we had, in this convoy, we had 2 Afghan police officers, trucks, 2 up-armored Humvees, 2 MRAPs, and then the last 2 were 2 more pickup trucks of the Afghan police. And going in this new area with these bigger vehicles, we realized driving out there, we really had to crawl to get to our location. We look to our right, we're looking down a cliff. We're looking up a cliff. And these big vehicles, you don't want to roll them over, so we have to be cautious. But being in this area and how dangerous this could be if we roll a vehicle over and crawling through it, it puts us in a vulnerable position. We see in the distance, people are watching us. We observe in case anything happens, but people have their eyes on us. Luckily, we make it to our objective, no problem. We assess the area, see where we're going to possibly build this school. We pack everybody back up, and we decide to pull out our maps. These electronic maps are like GPS. We call them Blue Force Tracker. Each vehicle has one, and you could talk to each vehicle. There's a little keyboard. You could talk to each little dot, which is another Blue Force Tracker, right? And looking at the map, we find a different route to head back, and we all decide to take this road. And looking at the map, it looks like it's nice and flat, which is nice. So we're not in this vulnerable position again. Well, on this road, you know, being born and raised in northeastern Pennsylvania, a lot of green summers, a lot of green vegetation, and now I've been in Afghanistan for 3 months, and more mountainous desert climate, you don't see a lot of green, right? But I remember in this specific area, I'm seeing a lot of grass growing. And I'm like, man, where the heck are we? Are we still in Afghanistan? It's like back home. It's beautiful. Who's watering their grass over here? This is awesome. The next thing I remember, I see nothing but black. And you know when you put your head underwater, it's like what you're hearing when you're submerged, like when your head is submerged. It's like a faint noise. That's the best way of describing what I was hearing. And I felt this momentum. And I'm thinking to myself in my mind, what the heck is going on right now? When I came to, I opened my eyes. Big, beautiful sky. It's like 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, just get my bearings. But why am I looking at the sky? Jeez, I'm on the ground. My feet are backwards, and I'm full of blood. The Humvee I'm riding in, completely ripped to shreds. We just hit a roadside bomb. All I tried to do was assess the situation. I tried to stand up. Well, that wasn't happening. I heard my buddy, Joe Voda, yell, get him in a body bag. People are killed. Is it us? Is them? What's going on? Finally, my medic got to me. U.S. Air Force Tech Sergeant Eric Jones. We call him Doc Jones. Doc started working on my wounds. Doc, how's everybody else doing? They're doing fine. They're doing good. We're going to get you all out of here. Doc gets the bleeding under control. Him and a few of my buddies put me on a litter, and they carry me behind one of the MRAPs. And when they transfer me over on this litter, they walk me right past 2 body bags. And I knew from the equipment around it exactly who it was.
And you knew one of the other fallen comrades was obviously also Derek Holland, Specialist Holland.
Yep. Yes, Major Haggerty, like I said, from Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Specialist Derek Holland from Wind Gap, Pennsylvania. And Derek just turned 20 years old, so it's heavy.
Yeah. What was going through your mind at that time?
Well, you know, I was very nervous. Like,
you think you were going to die?
Well, I seeing Derek and Scott's, remains in that body bag. That was like that hit me heavy, and part of me was like, I'm probably going to go too. That was it. My buddies, my medic Doc Jones gave me a shot of morphine, and all of a sudden I started to get a little loopy, and they call in a 9-line medevac chopper, And my buddy, he's a senior airman in the Air Force. His last name is Stone. And we call him Stoney. And Stoney is talking to me. And have you ever met this kid? And I have not seen him or talked to him since they put me on this Black Hawk. But before we hit this roadside bomb that day, Stoney he very reserved and kept to himself. But in that moment, he was just talking to me. Hey man, you hear the Black Hawk coming? It's coming to get you. We're going to get you out of here. And I never heard this kid talk so much. And that's what you're supposed to do. Make sure I don't go into shock, keep me awake, have conversations with me. And if I could ever see that kid again, Stoney, wherever you are, dude, man, I'll never forget that. You know, keeping me at ease.
Well, hopefully Stoney is listening to this.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. I wonder what he's doing now. Well, Black Hawk landed. They put myself also in the back seat of our Humvee. We were escorting an Afghan governor, and they laid him to my right. And one other person got on that Black Hawk. An Afghan police officer who wasn't wounded, but because we were picking up this Afghan governor, he was having one of his own escort wherever this Black Hawk was going to take us. And look, you know, I was raised Catholic, so I'm a Christian man. And to the right of me is this governor, right? And I'm 24 years old. I'm pretty damn healthy. I'm in shape. But looking to my right at this governor, my guess is he's probably in his mid-50s, if I had to, you know, make an educational guess. And he looked a lot worse than I did. And all I thought to myself at that moment, I think this guy might die right next to me, right? So I'm like, dear God, Allah, for his sake, being he's Islam. I'm guessing he's Islam just because of the culture he's from. I took my right hand and I squeezed his left and I was like, get us out of here. Say a little prayer. Now on this Black Hawk ride, Todd, I keep wanting
to... If I may, though.
Sure, go ahead.
You found at that moment, you reached across to an Afghani. Mm-hmm. Just, I mean, that's a very powerful statement for all of us, because what you just, I mean, you saw, the major, you lost major, you lost the specialist there, and you're reaching across to an Afghani. I mean, you felt the humanity at that moment. You just, why?
Why take more life? You know, I don't care what uniform you're wearing or where you're coming from. You know, at the end of the day, man, you know, just seeing that in this moment, I survived this blast and adrenaline is running, and seeing this Afghan governor laying next to me, and is this going to be, you know, somebody else who's going to die today in this same incident? You know what I mean? So it's the least I could do for this guy. That's how I felt about it.
So you obviously realize you're horribly injured, and you then ultimately have to make some decisions about your left leg, your right leg, mm-hmm. and I know you were in bad shape, obviously. Mm-hmm. I know ultimately you had to make a decision about losing your left leg.
Right.
And I couldn't even imagine getting ready for the show, Earl, to be honest. I couldn't even imagine what kind of emotions would be going through anybody's mind. But you had to make some horribly challenging decisions. Mm-hmm. You were not home. You know, I think you probably then got transferred to Germany.
Correct.
Right. So what was that like? You know, you're there. You're in an Air Force base. You have to make some horribly challenging decisions. What was that like?
Well, heavily medicated. The doctor came in to my room and said to me, hey, your right leg we're going to salvage. We think we could save it in the long run, but it's going to be a journey. Your left leg, we had to pull so much muscle out for whatever reason. I didn't understand why, but we're going to have to amputate it. And I'm like, geez, hey. Amputated, and I remember saying to the doc, I was like, you think I could keep it? And he said, well, if you keep it, there's going to be no weight bearing at all. So with a prosthetic, you could walk, but if you keep it, it's going to be wheelchair, crutches. I'm like, Doc, you're not hearing what I'm saying. Do you think we could keep it? You see what I'm getting at here? And the doctor said, no. And I was like, what do you mean I can't keep my leg? Take it home? You know, and I think I'm just so medicated. I'm trying to joke around with this guy. And I was like, I can't be the only guy to ever ask if I could keep what limb you're going to amputate from it. And then I said, I want to make a lamp out of it. Like, look, the holidays are right around the corner. Did you guys ever see A Christmas Story?
So you're trying to make levity in the most crazy decision you ever had to make in your life.
Pretty much.
So I understand that obviously you underwent the procedure. And I know that unfortunately your right leg was horribly injured. You underwent multiple surgeries. You had the subtalar fusion. And I know that part of the rehab, you went to one of the great military hospitals in the world, Walter Reed. And getting ready for the shot, I read you spent like 18 months at Walter Reed. And for the viewers, in getting ready, I was like, you know, it's obviously a lot of heroes that are grievously injured. Lives are turned upside down.
Correct.
Not just for the injured, but for their family, their infantry, their platoon, everybody that cares about the particular soldier. And the whole country is grieving because, you know, our heroes are getting blown up and horribly injured. What was it like there, you know, the 18 months? Is there anything that like stands out among that experience that kind of like, you know, made you kind of put things in perspective?
You know, at the time I got to Walter Reed, it was the summer of 2008. And both these wars are pretty heavy, Iraq and Afghanistan, right? And you could imagine everybody around me, like double amputees, triple amputees, people who lost their eyesight, traumatic brain injuries, post-traumatic stress, you name it. Everything was there. And I like how you mentioned the families as well. It's like everybody was taking a hit on this. And it was just a zoo full of people trying to get their life back in order from what happened. And everything I mentioned, all the injuries, you think of it as like a somber place. I got to tell you what, man, it was a complete opposite. And what do I mean by that? I'm watching. My favorite part of the day was going to physical therapy.
Why is that?
Because I just saw people laughing, people busted each other's chops. You know, one thing with the military is you got to have a sense of humor to be in the military, I feel like, a lot of times. Giving each other a hard time.
So if I may though, so you're in a room with obviously heroes. They're going through a lot of physical challenges. And I would expect, I've never served in our great country, I would just expect everybody there, oh my God, you know, this is just a horrible thing I'm going through. And you saw the opposite. And what, is there some examples of someone that maybe you think about, like to this very day, about what you saw and the resilience of the human condition?
You know, I remember I didn't start walking for a long time because this guy had to heal, right? So I'm watching guys who also lost limbs in their tours get there after I got hurt, but walk before me because I had to wait a long time for this guy to heal. And, you know, so I'm in a wheelchair this whole time. Well, it was a Friday. The day comes that my physical therapist and my prosthetist, Art, informed me, hey, we already got you fitted for the socket, which is this part right here, this black thing that I have what's the rest of my limb in. He said, on Monday, we're going to get you on the parallel bars and we're going to get you standing up and vertical for the first time. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. The weekend rolls around. I have a good weekend. I get to physical therapy on Monday. I wheel up to those parallel bars and I put my socket on. They attach a prosthetic to it and I'm up and for the first time on these parallel bars, just getting used to standing up for the first time in such a long time. And I'm going back and forth on these parallel bars, back and forth, back and forth. And I said to my physical therapist, Kyla, I said, Kyla, do you think I can walk in the track in physical therapy? She's like, absolutely. Right. And before you do that, though, here's this vest. I'm like, well, what's a vest for? Well, on the back of this vest is a carabiner. And parallel on the ceiling of the track is a rail system. On the rail system, there's a rope. And that rope hooks to the carabiner. And I said to Kyle, I was like, I don't think I need this. It's not like I'm running, you know. If I fall down, it's like everybody's tripped in their life. It's not life-threatening, you know. I think I'll be okay. It's like, it's protocol. You got to do it. Oh, one more thing. Here's your granny walker. Tennis balls and all, you know what I'm talking about? So now I got this leash on me, and I'm in this granny walker, just getting my laps in, and my attitude just changes to like, this sucks. So I'm in my little granny walker, getting the laps in. And meanwhile, there is somebody on a physical therapy mat, a PT mat, knocking out these push-ups. And this gentleman, he has absolutely no legs, like no limbs left of his legs. So he's what's called a hip dysarthric on both his legs, right? So there is no stump, there is no residual limb. And he's also missing, I want to say it was his right arm below the elbow. And he's wearing a prosthetic, and it's a rubber stopper on the end. You know, like prosthetic arms, you see like the hook. This had this rubber stopper. And he's knocking out these push-ups. And he's just got his headphones in, and he's just getting his workout in, just killing it, like really going to town. And I'm in my granny walker, getting these laps in. And I swear he must have was able to, like maybe he heard me say something to Kyla, or he saw the pissy look I had on my face, like, and I'm coming around the corner, and this triple amputee who's doing these push-ups takes his headphones off, and he has this smirk on his face, this wise-ass smirk, and I'm getting closer to him, and I could tell he's going to say something to me, and we lock eyes, and he just looks up at me and says, "Would you lighten up, you paper cut?" Crazy. And it just like took me back.
He basically cursed to basically say like, "Wake up, man!"
Oh,
like,
big time, yeah. Like this triple amputee is just killing it at life right now with a big smile on his face, headphones in, and I'm like, dude, I'm just missing a leg. Look at this guy. And all I could do in that moment, Todd, was just laugh. And I'm just like, what do you say to that, right?
Yeah, I don't know what you said, but that shows the human condition and the spirit. It's crazy. So when he said that, did you all of a sudden kind of like readjust your attitude?
It was like perspective, you know what I mean? A whole new perspective. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to be with this leash in a granny walker forever. It's okay, man.
So Earl, I know through your tremendous hard work and the tremendous doctors and nurses and rehabilitation specialists at Walter Reed, the great military hospital, serving our tremendous men and women in our country, you were able to overcome that, and you came back home, all right? Mm-hmm. So when you came back home, what was that reception like? Was it what you expected?
Well, it was a little bit of adjustment, I guess, this new way of life as an amputee. No, I'm out of the Army at this point. But it's a whole new way of life of, at first, I limited myself, I felt like, because I was supposed to. I know that sounds weird, but like, hey, I'm disabled. I can't do certain things, right? You know, like, where's the wheelchair ramp? I can't climb the stairs anymore. You know what I mean? Like, and that, I feel, looking back, I realize I think everybody goes through that. You know what I mean? Just because it's just this whole new way of life. For a little while, I walked with a cane. But what are you going to do, right? It's just a big adjustment.
Did you move back home with your family?
I was back and forth from Washington, D.C. I got a job as an archaeological lab technician in Alexandria, Virginia, that borders D.C. And my home, and I was renting a tiny little room from a friend of mine, like a tiny little closet, as I worked in D.C. And I had my apartment still in Pennsylvania at the time. in Scranton. I was living in West Scranton at the time on Archibald Street. And so I'm like back and forth. Like, it's just a nice 4-hour drive, easy drive.
So at what point did you start to, like, you know, realize, like, I got to get it together? Like, you know, I've been through hell.
You know, I think, like, moving forward, I was optimistic. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't, you know, this new way of life as an amputee, you know. But I could say with confidence I was in good spirits. I was, you know, I had my moments, and I think everybody does when you go through this transition in life. But the one thing I would have to say to myself is, this is like, it's a blessing because this is all that happened. Meanwhile, Scott and Derek were killed. So what do I have to complain about?
You know, I was thinking about just how crazy the world is, and sometimes you're lucky in a horrible situation, because you could have been seated where Scott was in that vehicle, but for him saying, hey, look, I want to be there, and you were in the gunner position. And in terms of, just because obviously Specialist Holland also, Derek lost his life very sadly. And did you have guilt at that point too? In just terms of, like, you know, just the fact that you were able to survive it, or were you, like, just, you know, so grateful and just kind of doing the best you could with what you had?
You know what helped me quite a bit with trying not to overthink this privilege I have of still being here? I got to meet Kathy, which is Derek's mother, and build a relationship with her. And Daphne, Scott's widow, and his kids, Jonathan and Samuel. And I think that helped me a lot with guilt, of expressing to them, like, I am not going to forget about Derek and Scott ever in my life.
How often do you think about those, you know, your fallen comrades?
I mean, every day.
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, it's not like I dwell in there anymore like I did in the beginning, but I mean, it's part of my life. I feel it's not just my responsibility, but it's also helps me stay, like, I think it helps me mentally to just have the utmost respect for their family, and just to understand that, like, look, that loss that you're dealing with, I was privileged to still be here, so I'm never going to forget who they are, and let me know if there's anything we could do.
Yeah, no, I just, you know, like, I'm just wondering, because I'm sure it must have been still, obviously the wounds are very deep. Mm-hmm. So I understand you're getting your life back together, right? Mm-hmm. And your beloved brother, Joe, is going to go on another deployment, right?
Joe actually was scheduled to go on a deployment.
Scheduled,
yes.
2010.
Yep, he was scheduled to go, but because of this, my guard unit decided to leave him back. And I gotta tell you, I always thought to myself, I know Joe, and all he would probably want to do is just to get back over there, especially when I dealt with this. So that was a big thing.
Right.
And instead, they don't deploy Joe, they deploy his wife. And that's like a double whammy. You know, because I know Joe. Like, he was like, I had to watch you go over, and now my wife's going instead of me going. And I got to tell you, that hit him so hard. I thought that was a bad move. Whoever, I don't know who the higher up who made that decision, but maybe a conversation should have been there, and, like, no, Joe should go. In my opinion, anyway, because I think, like, I just thought that's my opinion anyway, that was going to be what's best.
So his wife, unfortunately, got deployed, and then, unfortunately, I understand your brother took his own life.
Absolutely.
In 2010.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of the reasons why also, Earl, I wanted you to come on is because, and you're very real and authentic, and I mentioned you in advance of the show that I had some parents have lost their kids, young kids, to suicide. And it's a problem, unfortunately, everywhere. It's a horrible problem for us, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it. And you got to get past the stigma of it. And I know you lost your brother, and I know how much you loved him and cared for him. You still think about your brother every moment of your life, and you're doing a lot of things to make him proud. How hard was it when you got the horrible news? What do you just like crawl into a ball? I mean, what was the emotions?
When I got that phone call, I was getting ready for a black tie event for the holidays in Scranton. It's a week before Christmas in 2010. And I'm at my girlfriend's house. And I get out of the shower. I put my suit pants on and a black t-shirt. Before I get fully dressed in my suit, I'm doing my hair. Phone rings, I let it go to voicemail. Finish doing my hair, wash the hair gel out. I go look at my phone, I see it's my mom. I listen to the voicemail. Earl, you need to call me immediately. Boy, what's that about? So I give her a call back and she's distraught on the other end. And she wouldn't stop apologizing. I'm sorry. I'm like, Mom, deep breath. What is going on? Talk to me. Joe took his own life. When I heard those words, I hit the ground and I just kept screaming. I can't remember what else that conversation. There was an I love you and I love you too, obviously. And, you know, my father was an alcoholic. And I went right to the fridge and I had some beer in the fridge and then right down the drain. That's the very first thing I did when I hung up that phone. And the very next thing I did after that is I walked to my laptop and I deleted all my social media. And it's like this storm is about to happen and my phone is about to go off the hook. And I just didn't want to deal with it at that time, you know.
But you got through it though, Earl. You got it through with a lot of his friends, your family, your inner strength. And when I was talking to you in advance about how important it is to put a spotlight on folks that are suffering in the depression and the anxiety and some of the signs, because invariably there's some signs that right. You kind of look back retrospectively and say, oh my God, I didn't appreciate what was going on. And I also share with you, just having you on and talking about this, you have a remarkable life, and if we can save someone or have a family member, friend, or coworkers, hey, listen, I think something's going on with that person.
Right.
What were the things that you kind of look back, just like, I didn't really appreciate that so much in terms of the signs?
I think some of the biggest things that, and I struggle with this too, holding a grudge, I think, and this is just a general thing, this isn't my life talking now, but it's like, sometimes you just gotta let things go, and what's more important in life. And, I talk about now the power of what community is to my audience, right? And I think sometimes, I have to understand, the people that you associate with, how wonderful people could be, especially with a community. It's something I've always preached in my program of when it comes to community and that kindness, like you said, to reach out to each other, maybe look for those signs. and to understand, like, when that weight gets heavy in life, we don't have to carry it by ourselves. And I have to tell you that, like, something you said, look for the signs. And I think sometimes not just look for the signs, if somebody giving away their stuff, man, they're not having a bad day, they're having a bad month. Like, that's always a time to reach out with that kindness and just, what's up? What's going on? You know? And sometimes it's more than just a phone call. It's, hey, let's go. What other activity you want to do together? Let's go to the gym. Let's go to a ball game. You know, showing that sense of camaraderie and community to a family member or a friend who is struggling. And also, it's just a reminder too, seeing somebody struggle. It's not, you need to go see a counselor. Like, you know, it's more of, let's go talk to somebody together. Maybe they're afraid to do it, but if you take them there together just to open that door for them, does that make sense?
A lot, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's always good. But also, a reminder for the person that's for the person who's seeing somebody struggle, but also for the person who is struggling to understand sometimes that vulnerability could save your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, people try to keep it inside of you. They have to understand. They have to get it out. So, you know, Earl, and like I said, I know it's a horrible, painful chapter in your life. 2008 was devastating, and then you lost your twin brother in 2010. And, you know, I bring people on that are real and authentic, and your story is very powerful because as down and as the horrors you lived through, because a lot of people, honestly, would crawl in the ball, and that be it. They won't be telling the world about what they've gone through. They couldn't get their ass out of bed in the morning. They'd be, I'm done. I'm checking out. But you didn't. You didn't. How'd you find the strength, the resiliency after losing your twin brother who you loved so much? And obviously you lost your leg serving our great country. You're right, yeah, the subtalar fusion. I mean, candidly, you can't do a lot. Where'd you find this strength? Because I really want people to understand. People can overcome things, and you're a shining example of that. Where do you think the strength came from? Because everybody I talk to, my wife, my kids, my co-workers, people, I'm like, I'm bringing this Earl Granville on. He's a hero. I said, you can't believe the guy's story. It's remarkable. Where'd the strength come from? Where's the grit? I love the word grit.
You know what? I would say I had to find... I didn't realize that at the time. But going through the motions when Joe passed away, I was devastated, right? And I was making bad decisions for a long time. But I found this passion in being physically active again. Remember when I told you when I first got out of the Army after losing my leg and that reunion back home and just living this new life as an amputee and seeing this, what I would think back then, the struggles that I was going to face with this? You know, not letting this define who I am when I started being physically active again. That, you know, it was like one thing led to another. Finding that new passion in physical fitness. Well, first, let's put it this way. It started with me stepping out of my comfort zone, right? Walking into a CrossFit gym. Walking to this CrossFit gym, we're doing these athletic moves that I'd never done before since I lost my leg. Things I never thought I'd be able to do. What this also led to was a community. Being around people and positive attitudes, helping each other reach their physical goals. What that also led to was not just those goals for each other, but building new relationships with people in general, right? New friendships. And when I found this healthy community, right, it led me down this path to something positive over here, something positive over here, the decisions I was making. Not letting this define who I am. Finding this new passion in physical fitness. You know, something we'll get into a little bit, these charities I run, which once again, like that time in Iraq, brought me to be a part of something bigger than myself, and also a purpose as a public speaker. Finding a new purpose, developing a new passion, and being part of something bigger than myself. And when I reflect back and I think of what led me here, some of the things I could say was changing my attitude, getting a good attitude, because that bad attitude is going to get you nowhere in life. Taking that leap out of your comfort zone, because what you're going to find in life, you're not going to find it, what you're looking for in life, you're not going to find it by staying stagnant. You have to take a leap out. But if you're struggling inside and you're afraid to take that leap, or maybe your self-worth is telling you you're not able to do this, that's where community comes into play, and I feel is most important, Todd.
So Earl, I got all worked up because we're having a tremendous episode here, but people are listening, they're tuning in, they're listening across a lot of different mediums. How do they reach out to you? You have a website they can, hit you up at?
EarlGranville.org. That's where you can find me.
Okay.
And the charities I help run, which if you want to be a part of a community, they're veteran-based charities, but anybody could volunteer with us. Wonderful people, wonderful community. Veteran, civilian, doesn't matter. Operation Enduring Warrior, the Oscar Mike Foundation, and something you're familiar with, Warrior Strong.
Yeah, I have to tell you, because, we were joking a little bit before. The reason why you're on the show is because Tom Tice.
Right.
Warrior Strong, I didn't know it existed until a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was reaching out to the community, and I reached out to Tom. And I'm like, Tom, I'm hearing you doing wonderful things with the military up at Picatinny Arsenal. I'm like, I'd love to have you come on the show. I love your mission. He comes on, good-looking guy in great shape. He made me feel a little jealous, I'll be honest, because a little younger, but he's really jacked in great shape. And he was telling me about his commitment to the veterans. And I don't think he's ever served, but he had the love and the passion for the veterans like I do. So we're talking, and he brought your name up, and he said, this Earl Granville, I did the Chicago Marathon with Earl in October. And I'm like, wait, hold on, Earl, who's this guy? It's like, yeah, he lost his leg. He's a tremendous person. And I was like, I got to meet Earl. I'm going to talk to Earl. And then I reached out to you like I do to a lot of people, trying to cajole him onto the show. And you're so extraordinarily generous. You may or may not recall, we actually had a Zoom call shortly thereafter. Mm-hmm. And then your schedule got busy and I was busy doing my thing. But it's wonderful you're here today. But Tom Tice, Warrior Strong, I know he means a lot to you, about what his mission is. Mm-hmm. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I love what you kind of nailed it right there, his dedication to the veteran community. And Tom is he is the example of you don't need a uniform, combat boots and a rifle to serve your country. Because in my eyes, he's not going to a faraway land with a rifle. But I'm going to tell you something, that dude, what he's doing for the community here, for the veteran community, it's service. He's serving as a nation's veteran. I'd say that's serving your country. People could debate me on that and respectfully may disagree, and that's fine. But I think what a guy like Tom is doing and what he has created, we talked about community, this community that Tom has developed, it is unbelievable.
No, he's a wonderful person. In fact, once again, it's kind of like the ripple effect. You meet one person, it opens a door to other opportunities. And anything you're doing in life, I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to do, is to meet people, you learn, you grow. So one of the things I also wanted to talk about, obviously, is the fitness regimen, because you are a remarkable, you're a wounded veteran, but you're in better shape than I'd ever want. I couldn't be in that kind of shape. I don't think I could. You do marathons. You did a lot of Tough Mudders, obstacles, you name it, you do it physically. How do you build yourself up to do that? Because getting ready for the show, there's Andy Piscopo, and I know the Boston Marathon. You competed in the Boston Marathon, and a marathon's 26.2 miles. And for those who are fitness folks, it's a long way to go. And for people that aren't in fitness, it's like an impossibility, but 26.2 miles. You did the Boston Marathon after the horrible bombings. And tell us about the run, and at the end of the run, what happened?
So the Boston Marathon, now I've hand biked the Boston Marathon a few times, right? But as I got older and started to expand my fitness goals, I wanted to run the Boston Marathon. Actually, I was called out by a friend of mine who lost both his legs, and he's running these marathons, and he's like, why don't you do this? And I'm like, you're right, why am I not doing this? So Andy's a friend of mine, and she helped train me. And 2017, we decided to do the Boston Marathon. Things are going great. I'm out there running the Boston Marathon. Around mile 10, I just kept cramping and cramping in my leg. I would go to med tent. They put some Bengay on it and stuff like that, or whatever stuff to stop cramping. I start running again, I'm still cramping. But when I walk, I'm fine. And I'm like, well, the cramping gets so unbearable. Anybody who's a runner out there knows what I'm talking about. It's so unbearable. I'm like, well, I'm not going to run, but I could at least walk. What are my other options? Quitting? So Andy and I, from mile 10 on, walked a lot of that marathon. I'd have little bursts here until it started to creep up, then I'd stop. A little bit and stop. But I got to tell you, taking that left onto Boylston Street when there's like 0.2 miles left, the crowd cheering you on, and it's just, there's no walking. Like, I'm just going to grit this and go right through it. And carrying the American flag, Andy and I, we took turns carrying it the whole way. And we're like, the finish line is right there. I give her the American flag. And I said, Andy, let me buddy carry you over. And I put her on my shoulders. She's holding up Old Glory. And we crossed that finish line. Now, at this point, how long I was out there because of this cramping, right? Finish the race. My phone is dead. We hail a cab. We go back to our hotel where the rest of my friends who were also ran the marathon that day. And put my phone on the charger. Go eat. Don't even think of anything of it. Go to bed that night. I wake up the next morning. It is everywhere. All over the internet. I'm getting phone calls from news stations back in Pennsylvania. I'm getting calls from Fox News. They asked me to do an interview of just like, I think everybody thought Andy was injured. But I was like, no, we just for a little flavor to finish. It's like, let me buddy carry you. And we crossed that finish line. And in that moment, I thought like all this attention I was getting, I was like, well, how do I do good with this, right? And started spreading my message. And Fox did a little bit of research on myself and my story with my brother and losing my leg, and that was my time to just spread this word and the ideas that I have. And
it was just an awesome, the picture. It's the people will be able to check it out when they watch this episode. It's an amazing, it's an amazing picture. But you're an amazing person. So I know that you obviously are devoted to our great country. And Memorial Day, I know there's a National Memorial Day concert in Washington. I know in 2013, Gary Sinise, who was one of the great actors, Joe Mantegna, they gave a tribute to you and your late brother in 2013. And getting ready, I was watching it, and it's emotional to listen to Joe. He's Joe Mantegna, the actor, just like portraying. I think he really caught at least a little sliver of the emotion.
Oh, man.
And I was watching that, and I was so moved by it. But also in 2018, you interviewed those two folks for the National Memorial Concert Day, and it was a really poignant moment. What was that experience like, in 2018 when you had a chance to really say thank you and interview those folks?
Well, PBS reached out to me in 2013 for the National Memorial Day concert to have Gary Sinise and Joe Mantegna portray my brother and I respectfully. Like, I was blown away. And at that stage, grand stage, watching them, Gary Sinise as he's portraying Joe and Joe Mantegna as he's portraying me, you see the emotion in it. Like, man, I watched that still all these years later, and I still get choked up by it. And when 5 years later, getting that honor to actually interview Gary and Joe right there in our beautiful backdrop of our nation's capital, and right there in this sacred ground, and so surreal that was. And just talking about what Memorial Day means to them, what brings you every year to coming here to to honor our nation's veterans at the National Memorial Day concert at PBS. It was so awesome. You know, and what was so special to me was actually interviewing these two when they once portrayed Joe and I. That was such an awesome feeling. And I don't know if you could tell, I was real nervous in that interview.
No, listen, you know, that's I started the opening monologue kind of maybe the same way. But, you know, the reality, though, is there is so much love for our military. But, you know, people get caught up in a holiday and they don't really appreciate the somberness of like a Memorial Day, about how important it is to honor our fallen heroes. And there's this, you know, I think imagery does tell a story. There's a picture of you at Arlington National Cemetery. You're walking through really hallowed grounds for us, which is the fallen heroes. And it really captures the gravity of the sacrifice. And one of the reasons why I want to meet you too is just say God bless you for the service and for all of our military out there. So you not only have overcome so much, but you inspire, you motivate, and you lift up the human condition, because a lot of people need that. And I was joking with you before we started about Cindy. Now, your wife, Diana, you know, I can't even imagine. If I said to my wife, hey, listen, I'm out with Cindy, oh my God, I would be not only locked out of the house, but hit over the head with the frying pan. So how does that all work out? No, on a serious note. Cindy, I mean, I know you bring it with you when you go and you speak to people. And what's it like speaking to people about your experience? And what's the reaction to it?
Well, you know, a little background of what Cindy is. This is Cindy, and she represents the weight of adversity that we all carry as human beings: guilt, stress, depression, anxiety. The weight of adversity that holds us down and stops us from enjoying life. Now, in the Oscar Mike Foundation, you can check us out at oscarmike.org. We're a charity. We help keep wounded and disabled veterans on the move, staying active, not let their injuries define who they are. We have a partnership with Spartan Race, and
yeah, it's a nice hat too, by the way.
Gotta represent.
I didn't see your hair today, but you came in wearing the hat, but I'm sure it's good.
There's a full head of hair, trust me. But we take Cindy out with us when we run our Spartan races. And I'll start off with Cindy. After a little while, she gets pretty heavy. But luckily, I have a team or a community right around me. So I'm not carrying this alone. We all take turns. We all carry the weight together. It's a reminder of up in here, the weight we carry inside, we don't have to carry it by ourselves. Something we talked about earlier. Sometimes that vulnerability could save your life. Talking to the right person you could trust, or even a professional, a counselor, whatever it may be. You don't have to carry that weight by yourself. And also understand the adversity you carry inside, it doesn't have to define you. You know, I think sometimes as human beings, we get stuck in this victim mentality. It's not going to get you anywhere in life. The bad things that happen to you in life, physical, mental, it doesn't have to define you. So you said before, grit, resilience, that's what we need to find. But when that weight gets heavy, you don't have to find it by yourself. So Cindy's that reminder.
It's pretty heavy. I'll be honest with you. You gave me a chance to hold the schmog, right? I had to do a little. I had a question about the schmog. I know that you go to Stillwater to Oklahoma, right, on a basis to show your love and respect, and you bring Cindy with you.
Yeah,
that means a lot to your fallen comrade.
Yes, every year. This year it's going to be March 7th. So anybody out in Oklahoma, in Texas, you want to join us? It's a Major Scott Haggerty Memorial Ruck, Route 177 in Oklahoma. It's a state road. It's dedicated to Major Scott Haggerty and his service, and it's an 8-mile ruck march. I'll be there with an organization I run called Operation Enduring Warrior. We'll have this guy out with us, Cindy, and we pay respects to Scott. Mile 5, we actually stop at the cemetery where Scott's laid to rest. I'll say a few words. His wife, Daphne, will say a few words. His kids, if they choose to, Jonathan and Samuel, they'll say a few words, and they usually join us on the event. So come join us. It's very meaningful. It's not, and it's we have a police escort and we have vehicles that also follow. So anybody could join us. If maybe 8 miles is a little rough, come out, do what you can, take a seat in one of the vehicles. And I always see these events, a lot of these events we do, you need 40 pounds in your rucksack and we can get these 20 miles in. I'm not looking for that, because I want people to come out and come and pay respects to Scott. And just showing your face out there, I think, is so important, not just as the Haggertys, but also the community at large.
Yeah, so, and that's a beautiful thing in your commitment and devotion to the Majors family and his beloved memory and just what he stands for.
Absolutely.
So one of the things we touched on a little bit is the veterans and how they do suffer, unfortunately. Some suffer immeasurably. And I read, getting ready for the show, sadly, it's a striking statistic. 22 veterans commit suicide on a daily basis. And that number is just, it's a heartbreak, because these are our heroes. They come back, and unfortunately, it's beyond an epidemic. That there shouldn't be one every day. It's way too much. What can we do? I'm a civilian, I'm a proud American, but what can we do as a country to raise awareness to this? And it's not just the veterans. Obviously, people are suffering, especially for whatever reason, around the holiday season, they get despondent. But what can we do to help solve the problem? It's easy to identify a problem. It's a painful problem. But what can we do, Earl, to help kind of get through that and to take away the stigma and to help our heroes that are suffering?
I think one of the biggest struggles when it comes to our military, and we talked a little bit about it before, is, like I said, majority of people who join the military, I believe, join as soon as they become an adult. So they're in this very unique culture, and then when they take that uniform off, they don't know what to do. So I feel like, as a community, is reach out to them, invite them to things, help them find that community, once again, that purpose. That first community I was a part of, I feel like, was my CrossFit community, CrossFit Scranton, with Tom Casey as a founder, and he invited me right in. And I also played hockey for a little bit, being a part of a team once again, just like when I wore that uniform over there. And I think for veterans, it's trying to find that once again. So I think here's a time, it's getting them out of the house and building those relationships. And those relationships, you'll never know where they lead to. Like what got me involved in CrossFit, I didn't walk into that CrossFit gym. My friend Talia Walsh, she invited me to, hey, come to a CrossFit class. And I fell in love with it instantly. And I noticed as months go on, mentally, I feel a lot better about myself. I'm not going to let this define who I am. And not just the physical portion, even the mental portion. I got to stop feeling sorry for myself. But what that did is I found a purpose at hand and started making those goals. Does that make sense?
No, it does. You know, that's something we all need to feel part of a community, part of your 3 Ps, as I recall. So one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you, you've been to Ecuador twice. And why'd you go to Ecuador?
2013, I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I spoke to the Warrior Transition Unit there, people who were getting out of the military from their injuries. And I spoke to them about my story and all this, and a chaplain asked me, hey, we have a service trip to Ecuador next year. Would you like to go? Absolutely. And we went to a little place called Shell, Ecuador, and there's an orphanage there run by Americans called La Casa de Fe. And it's one of the things about some of the cultures over there, there's, you know, we see it on TV, you see it on these jungle tribes, right? And with these, I'm learning my time in Ecuador, where a lot of these orphans come from. They don't use the medicine that are Western, right? And with these tribes, if a child is born with a disability, it's a burden to the tribe. So the child, unfortunately, is abandoned. And that's where Casa de Fe comes into play, and they're taking a lot of these kids with disabilities and stuff like that. Or maybe the tribe will see the child as a burden, right? So volunteering with these kids over there in Ecuador, it was just amazing. One kid in particular, He was on crutches. His name is Martin. That's how you pronounce his name, Martin. And one of the workers at the orphanage said, would you work with him? Because he doesn't want to use his crutches. And he's just injuring himself more, not using the crutches. And I'm thinking to myself, the mind of I believe he was 8 years old at the time, and he doesn't want to use his crutches because he probably looks different than some of the other kids. And they asked if I would talk to him just for the fact that I have a prosthetic. And it was like, hey dude, why don't you use your crutches? And I don't like them, It was just real short about it. I don't like them, I'm like, we were given these tools in life because in case we hit a roadblock, these tools in life help us excel our lives even better for what we are given or what we have. This prosthetic leg made me a champion and made me be very active and do this awesome stuff. Your crutches probably will make you a champion, my man, Next day, he wasn't using his crutches. And I was like, why aren't you using your crutches? And he's like, I don't like them. And I said, there's a rock in the yard of this orphanage. This big, it's a big rock. Probably a little bigger than Cindy, right? But it's heavy for a child. And I said to him, tell you what, my man, the hill in town here in Shell, I bet you I could carry this rock up this hill, but you got to come with me and you got to use your crutches. Oh, you can't do that. I'm like, you want to bet? So that afternoon, we climbed up that hill and I had that rock. And we got to the top of the hill. And there's a little convenience store there. And it's a little ice cream stuff. So I bought him ice cream, high-fived him. And we went back down the hill. And I signed the rock to Martin. As I keep being a champion, your friend Earl. He probably, got rid of the rock, whatever. But my point is I wanted to show him, look, dude, this isn't slowing me down. Those crutches aren't going to slow you down either, my man. 4 years later, I went back to that same orphanage. This time, I put the trip together to Ecuador. Some of my friends, they went along. And I talking to some of the workers, like, dude, where's Martin at? And at this point, he's now a teenager. And he was at an orphanage for where the teenagers go. And it was in a different part of Ecuador, but it wasn't that far. So on one of our days off, we got to find out where he was. And little reunion him and I had. And it was pretty cool seeing him once again because I never thought I'd run into him again.
But Earl, that's the humanity of you. That's the beauty. You've been through a lot, but you're lifting someone up across the world, really. And to help a young kid who's an orphan and to give him hope and a role model, because you're a role model for a lot of people. I'm always curious, what do you say to a veteran? I always say, thank you for your service. But I'm also like, well, is that really enough? I mean, should we, for folks, what do you think about what the Americans should say to our heroes here when they come home?
I would say thank you for your service. I mean, I know a lot of veterans, they take, they get weirded out by it. But I like to tell them, look, dude, years ago, 50, 60 years ago, those troops coming home from Vietnam that got drafted, that didn't even want to be in the military to begin with, then they come home and the citizens treat them like garbage, they would love to hear that. So I think it's important to just embrace it. They're not saying anything bad. They're not degrading. They're just grateful for what you did. And that's important because you don't want it the other way. So I'd say thank you for your service. Why not?
So one of the things about you being a world-class, athlete, I mean, you're doing triathlons, marathons. You climb Mount Elbert in Colorado. I read 14,000 feet. I mean, that's quite a climb. What's it like when you engage with the public and you're competing? How does that feel?
Well, it's, I don't want to say this is a disadvantage. I try not to think that, if I'm going to do a race or, maybe a CrossFit competition, whatever it may be. There's a saying, comparison is a thief of joy. I'm going to work what I got and do my best doing it, and that's all I can do. And I think that's with anybody in life out there. I look at, there's so many people in my community that are in situations like this. My buddy, Johnny Lopez, he lost his arm while he was in the Army. It wasn't combat related. He was actually on a motorcycle and a drunk driver hit him and result the loss of his left arm. Johnny Lopez is living his best, awesome life. The guy has a skydiving license, and he jumps out of a perfectly good airplane all by himself. I look at, he does archery. So I want you to picture this. A guy with one arm doing archery.
With his mouth, yeah.
And I'm like, dude, Johnny, like, mad respect, dude.
Wow.
Like, I said to him, like, look, I had braces for 2 years as a kid. There's absolutely no way I would do. I like my teeth. I like my smile. Respect to you, my man. But that is determination. That is grit. And for anybody out there who is struggling, look, I got to tell you, man, you'll never know what you're capable of doing by just sitting around, by not stepping out of your comfort zone. In times you're going to fail. Look, it's inevitable. Is failure, like, you could take it one of two ways. You could feel sorry for yourself, or can you learn from it and find growth? I had to learn that a lot. You know, I never thought I would make a podium running these Spartan races. You know, I usually run the open heat, have fun. One of the charities I'm with, and that's that. But I did a Para-Spartan, one of the first of its kind in 2022. And I went to the Netherlands to do it, and actually got a silver medal. I got second in my category, people with lower extremity injuries.
Yeah, you know, speaking of medals, and you know, you got the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, the Combat Infantry Badge for your service to our great country in the 109th. I know you have the medals and you have those. Do you reflect on that at all?
I was very blessed that I was once a part of this military culture and wearing that uniform. And, you know, all the medals, I got to tell you what, it's, you know, they're just objects on a wall. But I feel like the people I served with, you know, the friends I made, you know, my buddy Scott Beal, he was my best friend when I was in Iraq, or Patrick Love, he was one of my close buddies in Bosnia. You know, these names that I mentioned, they're, it's the people that I served with, and those, you heard me say it a lot, talking about relationships in this. And that I feel like is very, very important to me.
So, you know, Earl, we talked a lot about your tremendous military service and how you inspire so many folks. I mean, you have just a remarkable story of the human condition and overcoming. So you're young, you're 42. Makes me feel a little bit old, but it is what it is.
Yeah, you look like you're my age, dude. When you told me your age, I'm like, wait, what?
You're in a little better shape, but I have to say, though, you're a remarkable person. So I always want to ask people about their goals in life, the legacy, you know, because you're on a mission. So where do you want to go with your mission? Like, if you could do anything going forward and set some goals, and I do believe you got to shoot for the stars. What goals do you have? What kind of legacy do you want?
Man, I feel like the scripted answer that everybody says, leave this place better than I found it, you know. But I got to tell you, what I want my legacy to be, boy, I just, I want people to remember, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, just the fun I had with these organizations I run and watching these people reach their physical goals. Because at one time, when I went to CrossFit Scranton with Tom Casey and Talia Walsh, I was once that guy where they're helping me reach my goals. And now I want to do the same to pass that torch. And at the end of the day, I want those people to also pass that torch to somebody else. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. You want to carry on. You started something, but because you have so many, God willing, years in front of you, and you're going all over really the country, you go overseas, and you spread the message. It's a very powerful message, Earl. It really is. It's a remarkable message.
It's something to remember, man. Like, the power of what community could do. And anybody out there, if you're struggling mentally, I have to tell you, man, it's sometimes you might need a little more professional help, and rightfully so. Hey, I saw a counselor when Joe died. I realized I needed it, and it kind of made me think a different way about life as well. Also, though, the power of what that community could do and the relationships we build as human beings. And like you said, I like what you said before, Todd. It's not
I'm
just
glad. Oh, good.
it's not just veterans though. We all do it as human beings. We're gonna struggle. You ever see the movie American Sniper?
Yeah.
Chris Kyle. You know what I love most about that movie and reading his book is, Chris Kyle. What do you think of? We throw adjectives out there with Chris Kyle. Oh, he's a badass. America's most lethal sniper in history. What I love about that movie is it showed his struggles. This man that we put on a pedestal, as badass and rock star status he is, he also had his struggles. So another adjective I always like to throw out, what was Chris Kyle? He was human just like all of us. Does that make sense?
The crazy thing you brought up, and it's an incredible story, but I was talking to my wife last night about you coming on, and I was just talking about the military and the service, and that she had a close friend that served our great country in that capacity as a sniper. And it took a tremendous toll emotionally on him. The folks I know that serve our great country, they don't really talk about in it, but they go through a lot.
Right.
Is there any other advice for us as a country about our military and about bringing everyone together?
Patience. I think that's a big thing is citizens and, patience with some of these guys and girls coming home and understand the struggles they may face, finding their way back into society, being a civilian. And I think patience is a big thing. Man, something you said about thank you for your service. I always it's like I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I tell our veterans, embrace that, dude. Embrace that, because people I'm learning are generally awesome, and society, I think it's people are just amazing, and finding that healthy community is also very important when it comes to your mental health.
Sure. So Earl, before we end this very powerful and very, very, inspirational show, any other advice for our listeners in terms of just, when they wake up in the morning, what their outlook should be and kind of how you get through the day?
Well, have those goals for yourself. And they don't have to be, it could be something huge, like, hey, I'm going to be a senator someday, or just a little goal. You know what? I want to train for a 5K. But if you keep those little goals in your mind and something to look forward to when you wake up, and a mission at hand and a task and purpose, that's half the battle right there. Actually waking up and doing something. I think that's so important. As human beings, we need that. And I look at veterans now, people who may have been hurt in the line of duty or maybe injured during training, and you get some type of VA disability and your bills are paid. Sure, that's great. Finances are taken care of. But as human beings, we need purpose in life. We need to be a part of a community, being a part of something bigger than ourselves. So anybody out there, service related, you have to wake up and find something in life. You have to. Like, uniforms off, you are already part of something so huge in life, being in the armed forces. Find something now that you're back stateside.
So for folks that are not in the military or a great military, just regular folks like me waking up in the morning, any tips for us on just kind of how to start the day and what to focus on?
I'd say the same damn thing. Military or not, having those goals at hand, finding a task and a purpose throughout your day, or building something, whatever you want to see your future going to be like. What did you ask me before? What's your legacy going to be? I want you to ask yourself that. Anybody out there listening, what is your legacy going to be? Hey, you got that baton in hand and where you want to go with it. Make those decisions and find something.
So before we go, Earl, I just want to say thank you so much again You've taught me so much about the military and about the sacrifice and about basically how to get through the day. You talked to us about Cindy, which I realize we all have weight and we all have to be able to have someone else help us when we feel that crushing weight. You know, the reason why I love these shows, I meet people like Earl Granville, a war hero, someone who's gone through so much adversity in life. We all go through things in life. We all need to understand when you're having a hard time, reach out to someone. Don't internalize it. Look for help in the community. Earl keeps on talking about the community because he believes it's the we generation, it's we. It's not me. And we got to remember that. Remember, we're all in this together. Look out for each other. God bless you all, and please tune in again for another great episode. Take care.
The Todd Leonard Show is sponsored by the Leonard Foundation, whose mission is to support the children and families who are battling pediatric cancer and those in need of food and assistance, women's shelters, and other important social services in the community. They also proudly support those fighting pancreatic cancer. They feel it's vitally important to help those in need in our amazing community when they need us the most. Please join them in extending a helping hand and go to leonardcharity.org and donate now. Together, we can touch many lives.